I was told XRP was dead money. When I found out BlackRock quietly showed up at Ripple's biggest event of the year, something didn't add up, and I had to investigate. So, what I discovered actually turned my skepticism on its head. Let me take you on a little journey, because over the past year, I've heard it all about XRP. The hype, the hate, the wild predictions, and the kind of dismissals, right? Some called it a nothing burger, implying that it all has fizzle and no substance, right? And frankly, I started to wonder if they were right. But just as I was tuning out, I should say, I caught wind of something that made me do a double take. It turns out that BlackRock, yes, the trillion-dollar asset management giant, had a representative not just attending, but speaking at Ripple's Swell conference. Now, Ripple Swell is like the annual gathering for the XRP community, and seeing BlackRock on the roster immediately raised my eyebrows. Why would the world's biggest asset manager bother with an XRP event if XRP was truly irrelevant? So right then, I knew that I had to dig deeper. So, I kept watching and reading everything that I could about this conference, and as I kind of peeled back the layers, it felt like stepping into a real-life crypto thriller. Now, I'm going to share what I found, from the big players quietly aligning around XRP to a grassroots project that I'm personally experimenting with. That's involving smartphones and passive crypto, more on that later. And even how I'm preparing my own portfolio for what could be a crazy next chapter. By the end of this story today, I think you're going to see why I'm more convinced than ever before that something big is brewing with XRP, and you're going to pick up a few ideas on how to stay ahead of the curve yourselves. Let's dig into it. Now, it all started with a question that I saw on X, formerly Twitter, and that kind of stopped me in my tracks a bit. Now, a crypto commentator that I follow, who goes by the name of Digital Outlook, he posed a simple challenge to the skeptics. He wrote, if XRP is a nothing burger, then why is BlackRock at Swell? Think about that for just a second. The idea is that if XRP truly had no real use or future, then what on earth would BlackRock be doing at Ripple's flagship event? That question, it sent me down a rabbit hole. I looked into the Ripple Swell 2025 conference lineup, and it was stacked. Sure enough, BlackRock's Director of Digital Assets, Maxwell Stein, wasn't just lurking in the back. He was on stage, speaking in a panel discussion about tokenization. And he wasn't the only heavyweight there. The panel and surrounding sessions had names like the chair of Nasdaq, right? That's Adain Friedman, and Rory, 𝗗𝗶𝘀𝗰𝗍 from Moodys, right? Nicola White from Robinhood, the CEO of Bitwise, a Bloomberg senior ETF analyst. Basically, a who's who of crypto and finance. Now, these are not the kind of people who attend something that is a total nothing burger. The very presence of these big players at Swell has the community buzzing, and for good reason. It directly contradicts the claim that XRP lacks a real use case, if institutions of this caliber are paying attention, of course. Here is where it gets even more interesting. People at the event noticed something rather intriguing. Apparently, Treasury officials, as in government finance folks, were actually sitting in the front row during these talks. Now, one observer joked, you don't have to hear the handshake to know that a deal just went down. In other words, something might be cooking behind closed doors. Now, to be very clear here, that is speculation. There are no official partnership announcements that have been made public. But if you're like me, just knowing that high-level finance executives and even government reps are in the same room is probably enough to make you perk up. It's kind of like seeing smoke and wondering if there really is a fire. This leads to a rather big question. What does BlackRock's presence actually mean? Now, one obvious theory is that the possibility of an exchanges or an XRP, exchange traded fund, ETF, right? Now, we all know that BlackRock made waves by filing for a Bitcoin ETF, which sent the crypto market buzzing. So naturally, people thought, is an XRP ETF next? Well, BlackRock has repeatedly stated that they have no immediate plans for an XRP ETF. I'll take them at their word for now. But multiple other companies have already updated their XRP ETF filings, aiming for a launch as soon as this month. BlackRock, showing up at the Swell, event, only poured fuel on the speculation that maybe, just maybe, they're doing some homework on XRP behind the scenes. Even if they're not ready to file anything just yet, being at the conference, it signals that XRP is at least on their radar. Seeing all of this as an XRP holder, I had a mix of excitement and caution. I was excited because it feels like validation, like finally the big guns see what we've all been seeing all along. I'm cautious though because, well, we've been burned by hype before. Remember when everyone and their grandmother thought that XRP was going to the moon overnight? That didn't exactly happen as fast as the internet predicted. So I'm staying optimistic, yes, but with a healthy dose of reality. Still, I do have to say, my confidence in XRP's long-term potential, it notched up after seeing BlackRock and even Nasdaq's leadership in the same room talking crypto. It's a plot twist that I didn't necessarily expect, and it's even got me hope that XRP's story isn't anywhere near over. Now, before I continue, let me drop a quick reality check and very important disclaimer. Now, this might just shock you, but I'm not a financial advisor and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile and you could lose all of the money that you invest. You should always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. After all, your investments are entirely your responsibility, and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Now, you should know that neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses, and this video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Alright, so with that said, let's get back into the story. So at the Swell event, the Swell conference, amidst all of the buzz, there was a really insightful discussion on tokenization, basically turning traditional assets into digital tokens on a blockchain. Now, Maxwell Stein from BlackRock shared some thoughts on where the demand for tokenization might come from over the next decade. Now, his perspective was pretty down to earth. Long term, he said that the big market for tokenized assets will likely be driven from the very same people who own traditional assets today. So think big institutions and asset managers that hold stocks, bonds, real estate, etc. If eventually there's no difference between a traditional asset and a tokenized asset, well, those players will be the ones that are leading the adoption. Stein also noted that we're not quite there yet. In the near term, the industry still has to prove that tokenization is actually useful and not just a buzzword. Now, he expects that early demand will come from two main groups. First, investors who want new forms of access, like someone who maybe wants to invest in an asset across the world that they would normally not be able to or couldn't do it, which tokenization might just allow. And second, participants that are looking for a new utility. Imagine doing things in decentralized finance that are currently only possible for big institutions. Now, those kinds of use cases, Stein suggests, will actually draw in early adopters. And if those pioneers can show real advantages through DeFi and tokenized platforms, well, they can create momentum that eventually bring in the larger, more traditional players over time. Now, hearing all of this, I realized something, The conversations at Swell were on a whole other level. Now, this wasn't just a rah-rah cheerleading for XRP thing. No, it was serious discussions about reshaping finance. And XRP's technology was part of that conversation. Now, if Ripple can position XRP or the XRP ledger as a solution in this tokenized future, that is huge. The fact that BlackRock's guy is talking tokenization at Ripple's event suggests that Ripple is seen as a player in this space, or at least that big players think that it's worth having the conversation with them. Let's go ahead and zoom out for a second, We have these huge institutions possibly gearing up for a new tokenized economy. That's the macro picture, But what about us, the everyday crypto enthusiast? This is where we have to shift from reporter mode to a personal mode here, because all of this kind of news, it got me thinking about how I should prepare for what might be coming. Because if BlackRock and others are positioning themselves, then I want to make sure that I'm positioned too, on a much smaller scale, of course. Now, one thing that I've done, and I recommend others consider, is to diversify where you trade and hold crypto. And I don't just mean diversify your coins, no, I mean diversify your exchanges. Now, over the years, I've learned to never want to be caught with only one exchange option, especially when the market gets pretty crazy. Now, I've seen exchanges get overloaded or even halt withdrawals at the worst possible times. So I follow a kind of plan A, plan B, plan C approach here. Now I have accounts on multiple exchanges, all set up, verified, and even tested with some transactions, so that I know that I can use them when the time counts. For instance, I have signed up with 𝗗𝗀𝘀𝗰𝗍 and BitGet and a couple of other crypto exchanges that I've mentioned many times before. Now, these are part of my backup strategy. I've made sure that I've KYC verified and I'm familiar with their platforms well before I need them. By the way, I do have affiliate partnerships with all of the kind of exchanges that I actually use, right? And they are linked on my website, which is in the description below. And of course, if you do use those links to sign up and trade through those exchanges, then actually it supports the channel here at no extra cost to yourself. So if you do that, I want to say a big thank you. But affiliate or not, the key point is you don't want to rely on just one place to trade or cash out. By having, let's say, Binance, Kraken, Coinbase, LBank, 𝗗𝗀𝘀𝗰𝗍, BitGet, and a whole host of others, at least in my arsenal, then I'm ready for whatever happens next. If one exchange has some issues, I can just quickly pivot to another one, and it's all about kind of staying nimble. You never know when an exchange might suddenly go down or freeze activity, and I don't intend to be scrambling if that happens. And speaking of exchanges and being prepared, I want to let you know on a cool little opportunity that's popped up. I recently partnered with Kraken for a very special promo to give people a nice bonus in XRP. Now the deal is pretty straightforward. If you open a Kraken account using my referral code and my link that's down in the description and on my website, and you trade at least $100 worth of any non-stablecoin crypto, well, Kraken will reward you with $25 worth of XRP. Yeah, free XRP basically. You do, of course, have to complete that $100 trade within 30 days of signing up, and of course, the offer won't last forever. Now, I thought that this was a pretty sweet way to help viewers not only get started on their top tier exchanges, but also stack a bit more XRP at the same time. Talk about a win-win, right? You expand your exchange options, remember the plan B, plan C sitch, right? And you get some XRP as a cherry on top. And if you are interested, you want to check out the details that are linked in the description down below for all the terms and conditions, because not every jurisdiction is unfortunately eligible. So just don't wait too long, because we're not sure how long Kraken will keep this promo open. Now, let's pivot to a different kind of crypto story, one that involves a more community-driven approach to building your portfolio. Now, amongst all of this talk of institutional moves, I'm actually really interested in the grassroots side of crypto. Now, a project that I have been exploring is called Unity. Some of you guys will probably know that I've mentioned Unity in previous videos. Unity, of course, is not the main focus for today, but it definitely fits into the theme of leaving no stone unturned. So, what is Unity? Well, in simple terms, it's a network that lets regular people like us contribute to a decentralized telecoms network and data sharing system using everyday devices. Think smartphones and tablets. Now, in return for helping power this network, or doing verification checks, I should say, in return for doing that, you actually earn some crypto rewards. Now, it's kind of like mining or staking, but instead of setting up expensive rigs or locking away a whole bunch of coins, you're basically just running an application on a whole bunch of phones. It sounds a bit crazy, I know, but it's pretty cool, right? Now, I decided to jump into Unity by purchasing a Unity Masternode NFT. Each of these Masternode NFTs comes with 200 licenses, which basically just means that I can connect up to 200 phones, devices, to the network under my single node. Now, I'm not going to go out there and buy 200 smartphones. No, I'm crazy. I'm not that crazy, at least not yet. My plan is to actually start much smaller when the Unity app goes live. I'm probably going to hook up about 10 phones to just run a test, right? The idea is to see how smoothly everything works, what the earnings are actually like versus what the calculator on their website says, and of course iron out any potential kinks. Now, if it all runs smoothly and well, then proves worthwhile, I'll probably scale it up gradually, right? Maybe 20 devices, then 50 and so on. Thing is, though, we can't have them all in one location. They do have to be spread out. So you're going to have to ask your friends to maybe run a few for you, family or whatever, but you want to spread them into different geographical locations. Probably, I'm thinking 20 to 40 are probably in a single location is probably the maximum amount you're going to want in your own home. But here is the cool part, right? The rewards from Unity, they can be paid out in various different cryptocurrencies. And I've decided to take mine in BTC, Ethereum, ADA, and XRP. Essentially, I'm earning a little bit of those top cryptos passively by contributing to this network. It's kind of like getting staking or mining rewards, except I'm actually using phones to help provide the necessary data on the network integrity, instead of crunching complex hashes like in Bitcoin mining. Now, I'm not expecting this to make me rich overnight, but think of it more like a steady drip of extra crypto that actually could add up over time, especially if the market values of those tokens and coins rise significantly. Now, I do want to stress though, Unity is a new project, and like everything in crypto, it does carry risks. Now, I'm treating my Unity node adventure a bit like an experiment. It's not a guaranteed moneymaker, of course. And I'd like to advise anyone interested in this to do your own research, right? Read the light paper, play around with their rewards calculator. I'm going to put the links in the description just for you guys. Anyway, understand the costs that are involved, buying the devices, the electricity, the nodes, versus, the potential rewards. Now, for me, it was worth a shot because I love the concept of supporting a decentralized telecoms network while also stacking more of the cryptos that I love and, for the long term. I also should note that Unity is actually founded by World Mobile and Minutes Network, right? These are two absolute titans within the telecoms industry. So to me, it makes a lot of sense. In fact, I did get so intrigued by all of this that I ended up getting a second and third Unity node NFT. Why 2 more? Well, the second and third ones, I'm actually planning to use them a little bit differently, right? I'm going to lease out my licenses from those nodes to members of our community here, right? That way, if someone is curious about Unity but doesn't want to buy a full master node for themselves and manage 200 licenses, right? Although they could rent out a license, if they wanted to, but other ways is that you could actually just rent a license from me and just run a handful of devices for yourself to test it out. Now, this way, you can spread the opportunity and grow the network without everyone having to pay the full price of a node or manage up to 200 devices themselves. If you can manage the devices, it's probably better to do that. But for those who don't want that hassle, you can join our Discord and we can basically talk about it there. Like I say, right, I'm going to have more details on all of this down in our free educational Discord server, right? Speaking of which, if you haven't already joined the Discord, you are missing out. It's completely free. It's an awesome place to learn and to share ideas with other crypto enthusiasts. The link is in the description down below. You can come and say hi. We don't bite, honestly. All right, let me bring this back full circle to XRP and why this whole journey matters. I opened this video by admitting that I was starting to doubt XRP because of all of the negative chatter. And here I am now, feeling more optimistic about it than I have been in a rather long time. The reason isn't blind faith or hopium, is it? It's actually the evidence of adoption and preparation that I've been witnessing. Right? Now, when I see BlackRock and Nasdaq officials showing interest in XRP, it tells me that XRP is far from dead. In fact, it might be gearing up for just a brand new chapter entirely. Let me share a little stat that put things in perspective. There are roughly 6.5 million XRP wallets that are out there, but only about 4% of them actually hold 10,000 XRP or more. Now, if you're in that group, the so-called 10K club, then you're literally in the small elite of XRP holders. Now, when I first heard that, it did kind of blow my mind a bit. It also kind of lit a fire under me to gradually increase my own XRP holdings to reach maybe the next goal. Now, I'm happy to say that I have crossed that 10K milestone. Little bit by little bit over the years, though dollar cost averaging, is a great strategy in my opinion and taking advantage of the occasional dip that we've been seeing. So why 10K? Well, for me, it's about at least it's not about some kind of arbitrary kind of round number or bragging rights. Although personally, I do like a good old round number. I think we all do, really. It's actually about positioning myself for the possibilities here, not the guarantee. Now, that is all about XRP. It really could take off if all of these institutional and technological pieces really do finally fall into place. So, if BlackRock or any other major player ends up doing something big with XRP, like launching an ETF or integrating it into financial products, you could bet the demand and price probably would reflect that. Now, I want to be ready for that scenario. Again, nothing is promised in crypto, and I'm just prepared for the ups and the downs. But all the signs that I'm seeing make me more confident that being in the 10K club could actually be meaningful in the longer term. So there's also that lingering question about an XRP ETF launch, isn't there? Right? The fact that multiple issuers are updating their filings for a possible XRP ETF this November is pretty huge news on its own. We saw that happen when a Bitcoin ETF started looking likely. The market went pretty wild. Now imagine an XRP ETF getting approved or going live. It could actually open the floodgates for a ton of new investors who were previously hesitant to deal with crypto exchanges or wallets. And sure, BlackRock isn't officially on the train just yet, but their participation in the convention at Swell, or conversation at Swell, actually makes me think that they'll jump in when the time is right for them. So, where does that leave all of us? Well, personally, it leaves me doubling down on staying informed and staying prepared. Now, I've been following the news more closely than ever. I'm going to continue to experiment with opportunities like Unity nodes to grow my crypto in unconventional ways. I'm also, shoring up my defenses by diversifying which exchanges I actually use. Remember the Kraken promo if you need an extra push to diversify. $25 in free XRP for a little bit of trading is nothing to sneeze at. Basically, I'm doing everything that I can to be ready for what I feel is an approaching wave. The way that I see it is that we're at an intersection of old finance and new finance. On one side, you have the old guard, BlackRock, Nasdaq, even government officials, right? Finally actually showing up at the crypto party, fashionably late as they tend to be. And on the other side, you have us, the crypto investors or innovators, the enthusiasts, the people building decentralized networks, running the nodes on your phone, pushing for adoption from the ground up, right? And XRP kind of just sits in the middle of that, all of that in a rather unique way. It's not purely grassroots, right? Ripple is a company with big partners, but it also is not purely traditional finance either. It is a bridge between the banks and the blockchain, right? Ripple's mission for years has always been to get banks to use XRP for cross-border transfers. Skeptics, they scoffed and said banks will never use it. But seeing the Swell 2025 turnout, I would say that banks and big money, are actually closer than ever to embracing this tech, even if they're doing it quietly. I find that super exciting. Kind of like we're watching the Avengers assemble in the finance world, except on one team is Wall Street and on the other team is crypto nerds. And they're actually finally starting to work together, right? You know the meme of two very different people shaking hands? Well, that's the mental image that I get when I think of BlackRock and Ripple both eyeing the future of tokenization. Now, I don't want to get all dramatic or imply that it's now or never for XRP. Right? The crypto market has a way of humbling all of us just when we think that we've got it all figured out. But I will say this, if XRP was truly a nothing burger, then we wouldn't actually be seeing what we are seeing right now, right? The grill is definitely heating up. Whether we end up, with a feast or not, only time will tell. And I'm not going to, at least I am going to, keep my spatula ready, I guess, because I want to be there just in case. Okay, that's enough with the burger metaphor. But you kind of get what I mean, right? In all seriousness, I'm just glad that I didn't give up on XRP when I was feeling the uncertainty, right? Instead, I followed the breadcrumbs and it led me to a place of cautious optimism, right? I've adjusted my strategies accordingly. I have my plan A, B, and C exchanges ready to go. I'm jumping on opportunities like that Kraken offer to grab extra XRP. I'm experimenting with new technology like Unity to keep growing my portfolio. And most importantly, I'm staying engaged with the community and the news rather than tuning out. So, here is my big takeaway from this whole adventure today. Stay curious and stay prepared. The crypto landscape is shifting right under our feet, with big players quietly making moves and new projects popping up all of the time. And if you blink, you might just miss a key development that could have been your early signal. Whether it's BlackRock lurking at a Ripple event or a new network that lets you earn crypto with a smartphone, pay attention. Don't be afraid to explore these things for yourselves. Safely, of course, and responsibly. Now, I am more excited now than I have been in a very long time because it really feels like the pieces of the puzzle are coming together. And I want all of us, the early adopters and everyday investors, to be ready to benefit when the next big wave actually hits. It's not about the hype, it's about the knowledge and positioning. So, thanks for hanging out with me today and listening to this story. If you found it interesting, insightful, helpful in any way, or maybe just entertaining, then you know what to do. Smash the like button and of course subscribe so that I will catch you all in the next one.